Everyone wants to be seen evolving. They want the applause, the likes, the comments, the instant reassurance that their progress is visible, that it's validated. But the problem with that hunger for visibility is this: what grows too fast often grows without roots. Invisible progress, though painful to the ego, is the only kind of growth that builds spiritual infrastructure. When no one is watching and still you rise, that's when something unshakable is forming. You can fake momentum to the world, but your soul knows the truth. We live in a world where posting your path feels more important than walking your path. But the wealthy, the aligned, the divinely assigned, they know something most people don't. True expansion happens in the dark. It happens when you go to bed without anyone noticing your effort. It happens when you make choices no one praises. It happens when you stay consistent, even when doubt whispers, "Why bother?" You don't need proof to keep moving. What you need is spiritual patience, the kind of quiet trust that doesn't chase the outcome, but trusts the soil it planted in. And that soil? It's deeper than social validation. It's richer than metrics. It's sacred. Invisible progress is God's favorite language. It's how he builds what cannot be shaken by public opinion. Napoleon Hill spoke of definiteness of purpose, but what he didn't need to say is that this purpose is tested in private long before it ever shines in public. Most people will quit when they don't get feedback. But you, if you're still here, it means something greater is unfolding. And it's unfolding where no one can see. That's how you know it's real. There's a kind of work that never trends. It doesn't get likes. It won't be shared. And no algorithm will reward it. But it moves mountains in the spiritual realm. This is the sacred work that happens in silence, when no one is watching, and yet your discipline remains. It's the moment you show up to your vision, even when nothing around you confirms it's working. That's not vanity. That's alignment. The wealthy do not chase applause. They chase congruence, the inner integrity that says, "I already am what I seek to become." And here's the part most don't want to hear. If you need someone to witness your consistency in order to maintain it, then you are not consistent. You are performing. Performance growth crumbles under pressure, but sacred growth becomes indestructible, because it is rooted in purpose, not proof. Napoleon Hill warned us, "If you do not conquer self, you will be conquered by self." This conquest does not happen with an audience. It happens when you resist the temptation to be seen and choose to be real instead. Invisible progress is when you build the foundation brick by brick, knowing that no one will clap for you. But still, you build, because someday the structure will rise, and the world will see a monument. But you will remember the dust, the silence, the grind, and that memory will humble you because you'll know it wasn't luck, it wasn't followers, it was obedience, in secret. This is the era of hidden excellence, and you are being called to build when there is no camera, no crowd, and no reward, because the reward is who you're becoming, not just what you're building. Every seed carries an invisible timeline. You don't plant a tree and demand fruit tomorrow. Yet when it comes to dreams, many abandon the soil before it even breaks open. This is the tragedy of impatience. We confuse silence with stagnation, and we misinterpret delay as denial. But the truth is, prosperity has a rhythm, and only those who learn to move with it will experience its fullness. The universe, much like divine intelligence, rewards not just desire, but readiness. Napoleon Hill taught that definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement. But what he didn't say outright, yet deeply implied, is that purpose without patience becomes panic, and panic repels what purpose magnetizes. Invisible progress is often packaged in delay, not because you're failing, but because you're being fortified. Your wealth, real wealth, is not only the money in your account, it's the peace in your decision, the power in your delay, the wisdom in your waiting. There's a holy incubation happening behind the scenes, but most people interrupt it. They uproot their vision to check if it's growing, killing the momentum that was about to reward them. If you're in a season of silence, don't curse it, bless it. Because if God or the universe is not speaking loudly right now, it's because you've already received your instruction. And now, it's time to walk it out in faith, not frustration. Progress is not always seen, but it is always measured by your obedience in the dark. There is a hidden wealth that only reveals itself to those who wait. Not passive waiting, but active alignment. The kind where you're not begging for signs, but becoming the sign yourself. Invisible progress teaches you to trust something radical, that the seed is working even when the soil looks the same. This is where many give up, not because they lack talent or tools, but because they lack the patience to stay aligned long enough for the breakthrough to emerge. In our modern age of instant results, silent growth feels like failure, but in the spiritual realm, it's proof that your roots are growing deeper, and deep roots can weather any drought. Napoleon Hill's principles weren't meant for quick wins. They were blueprints for transformation under pressure. When you choose discipline over display, devotion over distraction, stillness over spectacle, you tap into a current that doesn't just reward you, it recreates you. Invisible progress is God's way of testing your internal agreement with success. Will you walk like you've already received it, even when the world says you haven't? Because wealth is not given to the loudest voice, but to the deepest frequency. Every moment you stay faithful in the unseen, you store up spiritual equity, a wealth that builds silently, and then floods suddenly. Your next breakthrough may not require more hustle. It may only require that you keep showing up with clean hands and a steady spirit. And when the time comes, that invisible progress will erupt into visible abundance, but not before your character is ready to carry it. What if the true architects of wealth are not the ones with the most exposure, but those with the highest internal standard? We live in a culture that screams for validation, but the most magnetic people you'll ever meet don't raise their voice. They raise their standard. They do not beg for outcomes. They become people that outcomes are drawn to. This is the sacred ground where invisible progress becomes visible transformation. And it starts with one thing: integrity with your own standard. When no one is watching, there is a kind of silent excellence that whispers into the universe, "I am ready," without saying a word. It shows up not in your posts, but in your preparation. Not in your image, but in your essence. Napoleon Hill understood this deeply. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are in agreement with, consciously or unconsciously. If your words say wealth, but your rituals say comfort, you're repelling what you claim to be calling in. You can't fake alignment. The universe doesn't respond to noise. It responds to substance. And substance is built through private mastery, not public declarations. Look around your life. The money, the peace, the confidence. They are not random. They are mirrors of your internal standard. Not the standard you speak about, but the one you silently uphold when no one applauds you. Wealth doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to what you refuse to tolerate anymore. Your current lifestyle is the echo of a past agreement, a threshold you silently accepted. And until you raise that threshold, nothing outside will rise. The ultra-successful don't wait for circumstances to give them permission. They raise their standards so high in silence that the world has no choice but to catch up. This is what invisible progress looks like. It is not viral. It is not celebrated. It is sacred. Every time you choose discipline over delay, solitude over distraction, purpose over popularity, you are not just becoming better. You are signaling to the universe that you are ready to hold more. Your success is not delayed. It is calibrating to the size of your standard. And the moment you decide that your future is worth more than your comfort, you shift the entire gravitational field of your life, because your next level is not waiting in the spotlight. It's waiting in your silence. Delay is not denial, but most people can't handle the silence long enough to learn that. When your desires don't arrive on your schedule, you're not being punished. You're being prepared. Because what you've asked for is bigger than who you were when you asked. There is a sacred sequence in manifestation, and most of it happens off stage. You won't see applause. You won't get confirmation. You might not even feel progress. But the divine does not deliver elevation to someone addicted to validation. That's why silence is not empty. It's sacred incubation. In that quiet place, your motives are purified. Your mind is rewired. Your spirit is tested for consistency, not excitement. Because what's coming to you carries weight, and heaven will not place that weight on fragile shoulders. This is the divine logic behind delay. It stretches you silently so that you won't snap publicly. You're not being held back. You're being trusted with transformation before being trusted with visibility. The richest breakthroughs are like trees. They don't start with fruit. They start with roots. And roots are buried, hidden, underground. But without them, no tree survives the storm. Your delay is not your enemy. It's the soil that protects the unseen becoming. You will be misunderstood when you grow in silence, because people don't celebrate what they can't see. And your progress, the kind that lasts, is often invisible to everyone but God. In a world obsessed with proof, with numbers, with public wins, it feels unnatural to value the quiet seasons. But this is where heaven watches closest. Not in the spotlight, but in the private choices no one claps for. Will you still show up when the audience is gone? Will you still prepare when no one is watching? Will you still believe when the world is blind to your evolution? Because spiritual wealth is not a show. It's an agreement. It's the handshake between your future and your present self. And that handshake happens in the dark. Invisible progress is the most sacred kind, because it comes from alignment, not applause. It's built on the days you wanted to quit, but didn't. The nights you cried but still showed up. The mornings you doubted, but took action anyway. You are not falling behind. You are being hidden for strength. Because when the world can't see it yet, that's often the sign you're closest to breakthrough. God does not delay. God develops. And when it's time, the unveiling will make sense of the silence. You've been taught to measure wealth in numbers, in views, in likes, in followers, in dollars. But the truly wealthy, the ones who build unshakable legacies, measure it differently. They measure it in calmness under pressure, in discipline without supervision, in the ability to delay gratification when every voice says, "Take the shortcut." This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he spoke of definiteness of purpose. Not a scattered hunger for more, but a focused fire, held quietly within, that refines you until you become magnetic. You don't need to tell the world how ready you are. You just need to become the version of you that your vision requires. And that version is shaped by invisible metrics. Can you stay committed without recognition? Can you grow without applause? Can you trust your process even when no one validates your path? The wealthiest people on this planet understand this. Before you get the result, you must embody the resonance. Before prosperity comes to you, it must come through you. In your thoughts, your habits, your standards. The inner metrics of prosperity are subtle. You'll know them not by what shows up in your bank account, but by what no longer shakes your peace. You'll notice that you don't react to lack the way you used to. That distraction no longer seduces you. That doubt knocks, but you don't open the door anymore. You are being refined, not for quick success, but for sustainable impact. Real wealth, the kind that stays, doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to alignment. Most people think they're waiting on money, but the truth is, money is waiting on them, waiting on their habits to match their desires, waiting on their energy to match their declarations, waiting on their identity to rise to the level of the blessing they're asking for. Napoleon Hill didn't just teach about desire, he taught about organized desire, a desire shaped by discipline, clarity, and emotional maturity. When you are not yet aligned, abundance arriving too early becomes chaos. You self-sabotage, you mismanage, you confuse the blessing for the burden. But when your inner world is right, everything flows to you without force. The right people, the right opportunities, the right timing. And here's the secret most ignore. Wealth can feel you, not your wish, your vibration, not your hustle, your alignment. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are prepared to carry. This is why some doors remain closed. Not because you're unworthy, but because you're being trained to hold what's behind them. So don't resent the wait. Honor it. The delay is not rejection, it's construction. Every invisible act of discipline, every quiet decision to stay focused, every uncelebrated day of inner work. It's building a container big enough to hold the wealth you were born for. You won't need to chase it, you'll need to meet it, at the altitude of your identity, at the depth of your alignment, at the frequency of your faith. And when you do, wealth will recognize its home in you, and it will stay. There comes a moment when you realize you were never chasing wealth. You were chasing yourself, the version of you who could hold it. All this time, the world wasn't withholding your blessing. It was protecting it, until you became a match for it, not through noise, not through begging, but through silent choices, invisible preparation, and the unseen faith to walk as if it's already done. You are not behind. You are becoming. You don't need to prove anything to the world. Let your life speak. Let your results speak. Let your silence become the loudest declaration of trust. Because wealth isn't impressed by appearances. It is pulled by frequency. It moves toward alignment. And it stays where integrity and identity are consistent, even in private. So here's your invitation. Stop asking when. Start becoming who. Stop seeking shortcuts. Start living in silent congruence. And if this message found you, if something in your soul knows this is a turning point, then write in the comments, I am the frequency of wealth. I move in silence. Let that be your declaration. Let that be your anchor. Let that be the beginning of everything. Because the quietest season of your life is where the loudest transformation begins.